Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yo, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to this week's episode of River City 93. I'm your host, as always, Elovaara. And first and foremost, happy holidays. Hope you're enjoying it. Hope you had a good time with the family and everyone. I am joined by Coach Mika Elovaara, who, let me get this straight, did a multiple country tour across Europe. How was that for you?
Yeah, yeah. I went to Germany and Holland.
Ooh, that sounds nice. Were
Yeah, it
you
was great.
Were you just going over there to scout like future talent for the Kickers, or were you going there just because like, yeah, I want to go watch some games?
Well, the second part is obviously. I mean, I don't think anybody should go to Europe and not watch games, but it was a business trip on many levels. I mean, I was very fortunate to visit two historic clubs in Germany and then pop into Amsterdam for one other visit to a small club there called Ajax. So um, it was like I said, it was a work trip on multiple levels. Obviously, scouting players around the world is an important piece of what we do, and we don't have a scouting department with the Kickers, so the scouting department is the same guys you see in the home game sitting on the bench, starting with Darian and myself, and then of course Connor, Reedy, and Evan. So seeing players in person is very important. But then also, if you have good club relations with different clubs, and especially with clubs of bigger stature, then the positive effects into your own daily environment can really exponentially multiply. And that for me was probably the most important piece of the visit. I had an invitation from Erste FC Köln in Cologne, Germany, for quite a while to visit, and my roles in Richmond being what they are, there's barely a time when I can leave Richmond. But
Yeah.
if there is one, it's after the season with the first team, and then so I visited there, and visited Dortmund as well, and what's one of the things that I think goes too much under the radar is how open so many bigger clubs in Europe and in the world really are in sharing, when you've networked with them previously, sharing, giving access to discussions of how to do player development, what are some of the philosophies, principles, you know and just daily operations. So I immersed myself in it for a week. I was very fortunate to watch academy team training really from the U11s, but primarily more from the older ages, from like U15, U17, U19, U21s, all the way to the men's and women's first teams. So long days, 14-hour, 15-hour days outside in beautiful rainy 32-degree weather in Germany. So the games at the end of the trip, the weekend games, one game at Dortmund and another one at Ajax, more like an icing on the cake, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that had to be. I mean, even for a guy like you who has like a vast wealth of like international knowledge, like that had to be pretty awesome to be able to sit in historic stadiums like Dortmund and Ajax to kind of soak in that atmosphere. Because, like you said, like normally when there's a game going on, you're the one coaching it. So was it
yeah,
different for you being able to sit like in the stands and being able to be like almost a fan as a sense?
yeah, 100%. And I do think that it's important as a coach to be able to take the experience as a fan too. I mean, of course, your brain is wired to go analytical pretty fast. But yeah, I mean, at Dortmund, when the home team wins 4-0 in an important game in the league, and there's 82,000 people, and there's, their yellow wall that I know people who watch soccer know, but it's 30,000 people, and they're singing from about an hour and 15 minutes before the game, to 30 minutes after the game, and then the party goes on after the game. Like, people hang out, people go to the merch store, people go, and I mean, there's a disco going on. It's just, it's the whole experience that is concentrated on the game, and it, like, 82,000 people, so quite the experience. I've been fortunate to be at many incredible venues before as a fan, but I've never been to a game at Dortmund or at Ajax before, and they were incredible experiences. So I'm very lucky. I'm very fortunate that I work for people who understand the value in that and facilitate me going over. So I'm very grateful that I had the chance to go. And like I said, the potential impact into our daily environment, they are multiple, and excited to share in many different capacities.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And I'm pretty sure, like, I would love to take a trip like that. But I gotta ask you this because we love to take here in Richmond that the Kickers are like a global brand and everyone knows about us. Did you
Hmm.
run into people like before you introduced who the Richmond Kickers were? Like, did they already have a sense of who the Kickers were?
I met two people who knew about Richmond Kickers, so I take
Uh,
that as a win, given
that is a
given
win.
where I was. I was in the
That is,
heartland of century plus old track record of competition and player development. So I take those two people as a plus.
there
And
you go.
whether they were actually truthful, I'd like to pretend that they were. You know what I mean? So,
Hey, they said it, so we'll take it as true that the
oh,
Kickers are
for
massive.
sure.
There you
And
go.
the other
There you go.
piece of that is now they do. I mean, I of course, I think anytime you visit a place, I think you should take a piece of you in there, leave something both
Yeah.
tangibly and obviously potential impact. And there's definitely people in each of the three towns that I've visited that are now repping Kickers brand. So
Yeah. There you
got to
go.
do what we can, right?
There you go. Richmond Kickers International. It's coming. It's
Yeah,
coming. 2025.
yeah,
Talk about building the brand of the Richmond Kickers. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about it. We got the USL Academy Finals coming up. This is after a relatively longish season for the Academy team.
yeah.
Um, First of all, like for those who might not be aware of it, can you just give us a brief, I guess, overview of what the USL Academy Finals are?
Yeah, so the USL Academy Finals is the culmination of the league season for the USL Academy, and for those who are unfamiliar with the concept of the USL Academy, right now the league is a U20 league with allowances for overage players, and I'm a big fan of the initiative, and I think it really speaks volumes of how much the USL cares about the soccer product. They want to align it with the European model. They want to make sure that it's of high level. And then so launching the USL Academy a few years back now, um, the league has continued to make progress with what it looks like and who's involved in it. And our inclusion for this season is part of the strategy. Clubs that are invested into player development models that are geared towards developing players for the first team, of course, but also just enhancing the experience while the players develop, because it's always going to be the case that most players who go through your academy are not going to play for the first team. It's always going to be the case. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. I mean, I think right now, you take someone like Germany or England, probably 3 to 5% of the academy players for each of the bigger academies actually make it to the first team of the club that they play for in the academy, right? So what the league is doing, what the USL is doing, is they're really enhancing a platform for player development for everybody, including for the first teams. There's 16 divisions around the country, and the requirement for the inclusion in the league is that there has to be a senior USL team. So USL 2, League 1, Championship teams have eligibility, and then it's just dependent on whether they actually want to roll out the program. And as our fans know, we did this year, and I'm incredibly excited about our first steps in the league. So we won our division, and obviously one of the nice things, one of the really sweet things about winning the division was that we beat NCFC home and away. So there's no questions, there's no arguments who deserve to win. And that's what we want local, regional, and national competition, and rivalries are obviously a sweet part of that. So
Well, with all that being said, I mean, I'm pretty sure this tournament means a lot to not only the academy but the players that are playing in it because it's a way for them to showcase how their growth and their development as well, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it's public knowledge now, but one of the things that, parallel to the actual national championship bracket, there's a showcase part of the event, and the English Football League, the teams that are in the championship in League One and League Two. There's a team called, like, I think it's called EFL All Stars or something like that, and it's consisting of players who've played for the academies of like QPR, Blackburn Rovers, historic clubs in England, and there's a team composed of players from those academies that's also going to be playing there. So again, it's similar to the model of the GA Cup with the MLS, except that this is the U20, so it's the level that's the closest to the first team level. So
Okay.
yeah.
So, given the time off, like how, I guess this is like a two-part question. Like, one, how are you guys preparing the players for such an event? But then also on the flip side, how are the players themselves staying in shape and being prepared? Because we've had like almost 3 months since their last game, or close to it.
Yeah, but I think the biggest thing is that we've had our academy playing in ECNL with the age specific age groups in the national competition that we are year round. So the players haven't been on break. It depends on who you are, where you've been in terms of, obviously the first team players have been in the first team environment, and then the U17, U19 age players have been with their age specific teams competing and training every day. And Connor Capoletti, who's our U19 head coach and the U20s head coach as well, and then Reedy Dowdy, he's our U17 and U16 coach. They've done a great job with our academy teams in the fall league play, so that we can now lean on our culture and the work that's been put in through the past several months. So
Okay.
Yeah.
So, kind of like in a broad aspect, I'm imagining that this being year one of the Joeys, as we'll call them, making it to the USL Academy Finals. Also, I think in the spring you mentioned it, how they made it to the USL Academy Cup, which those two things in my head, I thought they were the same thing.
Right.
They were runners-ups in that. How does that go? How does that fit into the overall development pathway for these young players? And then two, can you just speak upon, for this being year one, it's kind of seemed like everything is falling in place the way how you guys have wanted it to, with the success on the field, making it to being a runner up and then making it to the finals of the USL Academy Finals.
Yeah. So there's obviously a couple of different angles that we could go at this question, but if you think about it, it's been almost 2 years now that we announced the partnership with Richmond United, which is very important for us because it connects us with the whole RVA soccer community at the highest level. Obviously, there's other very important clubs that are smaller that we absolutely love to cooperate and work with, but the partnership with Richmond United is a key piece in this, because once we started with that, we've gradually, and I would say patiently, we've intensified and improved the programming. In the first year, our U17 boys won the ECNL National Championship, and when you look at the team that's in the USL Academy Finals now, a core of that group is from that same team. So we've made some historic strides, if you will, along the way in the past 2 years, and so the implementation of the USL Academy team, we were asked to do it already the year before, but we didn't feel like we were ready to roll it out because we also had so many pieces of the foundation to lay for the partnership with Richmond United. But what you're seeing really is the work in progress that is gradually just kind of moving forward, and in the right moments. Obviously, it's great if you get on-field success, but we all know that it's so often nowhere near guaranteed. You just have to lean on the things that you do. And again, like if you even take it back to what we talked about in the beginning, I think it's very important that you constantly stay aware of what's going on around the world, what is being done in high level player development environments, so that we know what we're competing with. So having said all of that, it is 100% a key piece with our overall vision, mission, and competitive strategy as a club to make sure that the U20s is as good as it can be. We treat it as a true second team, to be honest with you, the way European clubs, and again, like the environments that I just visited, they treat their under 21s or under 23s, depending on what country you're in. But they compete in leagues that are true professional leagues. Like you look at in Portugal, Benfica second team is playing in the second division in Portugal, and they could probably win it every year, but they can't get promoted to the first division because then you would have your first team and your second team in the same division, right?
Yeah.
The same thing in Germany. You have Dortmund and Bayern Munich have their U21s in the third Bundesliga, which is a ridiculously competitive, high-level, fully professional league, and then the others have their under 21s in the fourth division, which is also fully professional and very high level. We are trying to do our version of it because we are in America, we're in Richmond, Virginia, so we have to keep that in mind. But treating the U20s as a true second team gives us the opportunity to have the players with most potential training and competing together against their counterparts around the country in a higher level environment than any one age group only youth platform can. So now, if you think about how we be preparing for the event, after the USL Academy League play wrapped up in September, pro team players in the pro team environment, academy players with their age-specific age groups competing, and now for the past 3 weeks, the teams come together, training together every day. We also played 2 friendly matches against Unknown FC UPSL team. It's a local club run by Lauren Hutchinson and her crew. They do a great job in working with everybody in the community, and we have a great relationship with them. So we played a couple of friendly games against them so that the players have an experience playing together also. So that's kind of, the bigger picture, and then zooming back on what we've been up to.
Yeah. Okay. So talk about these finals that are coming up on, I believe, December 8th, correct?
4th through the 8th. Yeah.
4th to the 8th. Okay. So as we've seen, there's a single knockout tournament. Like, what are the unique challenges of having it be just a single knockout tournament where, God forbid, the Baby Roos play one bad game where a ball goes in and it's kind of one and done? What are the unique challenges in that kind of tournament?
Yeah, that can happen, right? We all have still a pretty open, fresh wound about that, huh?
Yeah.
That can happen. Like you
Wasn't trying to bring that up, but yeah, we're there.
Twice, and then they counter and score. Yeah. So, all jokes aside, I'm starting to get to a point where I can look back on it and say, well, we at least gave Omaha actual real challenge. And the one of the many things that I really appreciate about our younger players is that they watch and follow the first team. They want to be part of it. They watch, they follow. We can talk about it. And preparing for a tournament like this, key challenges, I'd say there's a couple. Being unfamiliar with most opponents is definitely up there because not everyone complies with the league requirements of sharing all game film from the league. So, theoretically, we should have 10 games to watch of our first opponent, but somehow there's only one, which is from I don't even know when, April. So it's a variable we can't control, and it can present a challenge, but at the same time, our focus is really, really on us. And really the other positive challenge that we have is that we have a very, very competitive roster of 23 players. Deciding the 18 who get to dress for the game is really hard, and it comes down to a combination of roles, matchups, ability to adjust and adapt in game. But other than that, there are really kind of no challenges that I can think of ahead of time that are worth discussing, because it would be just kind of speculation.
Yeah, I understand that. So with that, how do you, and this might be a unique question, but how do you balance development goals with the pressure of one knockoff games in a tournament like this? Or is it kind of just like you said, like we're kind of first let's figure out the 18 and then go from there and take it one game at a time?
No, I mean, I don't think the two are in any way like mutually exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's much balancing, in terms of long-term development. Competing in this type of finals bracket is really the only thing that you think about when it comes to long-term development, right?
Yeah.
This is what you work for in the daily environment in the first team as well. This is what we develop players for, to compete for the national title, right? So in a single elimination format like this, you have to focus on, you go there to win, right? So you think about how do you prepare for each game as its own individual game. You can't look past any opponents. You can't prepare for, well, what if we have to play 4 games in 4 days? Well, we'll deal with them each game at a time. So really, like I said, like it's the only thing that you think about is in terms of the long-term development. We hope to get into these situations, and now that we're in it, we focus on how can we be our best. And there's a lot
And
of things that go into it.
yeah. And you're a coach with a lot of experience, but for Connor, who is like you said, he's the coach of the U19s and the U20s. Like,
Yeah.
what strategies have you emphasized with him on coaching knockout style tournaments? Where, like I said before, like a single mistake that you create or don't
Yeah.
create can
Yeah.
go against you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at this point, the coaches have to exude calm and relaxed, but kind of fierce and focused approach. It's not about us. And if we make it about us, it's a big mistake. It's about the players, and it always will be about the players and what we've done together in the past several months. So, and like I mentioned earlier, I think Connor and Reedy have been doing a great job with the academy teams in the fall league play, and then like my role during the league play in the fall is pretty intensive because I go into each of their environments. I'm at their training sessions and I'm at their games. I help them in different ways. Sometimes helping is just making sure that they feel supported, right?
Yeah.
But now is the time when we really lean on our culture and the work that's been put in. And we just talked about it. Everyone knows that anything can happen in a knockout tournament. I mean, that's part of the reason why March Madness is madness, right? But for the players, the most important thing is to be together, to trust that they're good enough to win with what we've worked on. And then, we help guide them and help, help them recover, help them do whatever we can. But, it's a great platform for the club. And like you said, for the players, they get to play against opponents they haven't seen before. And I'm excited to see the experience and, I'm always excited to watch our young men play. They play an entertaining brand and they're a pleasure to work with. If we made it too much about ourselves, you might start losing a little bit of that. So
Yeah. And I mean, you have some players that have been introduced to the single knockout tournament format, such as Becca Howe, Griffin Garnett, Landon Johnson, James Sneddon.
Yeah.
How, and I guess, like, how do you mentally prepare those players who haven't been in that environment of, like, is every game is pretty much a final within itself, while also mending it to the players that have been at it already this past year and using that experience to get them ready and comfortable for this?
So you mentioned some key names there in terms of the player personnel, and I think as a coach, one of the key things, whether it's pro players who've never really been in the playoffs or who've never won anything, or academy players, I think one aspect of the mental preparation is similar. It's empowering the players who have the experience, right? So that the leadership on the team feels like we are on the same page and we trust them and guide them and support them in their leadership, because at the end of the day, it's the players' game. So if we can help Beckett, help Landon, help Griffin, help James amplify their voices to be the leaders, then it's the younger players looking up to Griffin and say, like, I'm so excited, I'm not going to let you down, right? And that's a huge piece of being successful. because ultimately the players should just focus on playing at the level they're capable of and focus on playing within our principles and game model. We've trained well, but at the end of the day, coaching is far more art than science. There's no magic formula,
Yeah.
and each team has unique needs based on the unique composition of the roster, and our team is no different. When you look at, like you said, I mean, James and Griffin especially, they played a huge role in our run to the playoffs with the first team. And then we have some of our younger guys who are 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly they haven't been tested in a way that Griffin and James just got tested, but at the same time Griffin and James hadn't been tested like that before they were, and look how they did.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why they did as well as they did was some of the more experienced players that we had with the first team. So again, the culture, the principles, the game model, all of that is important. But as coaches at this point, it's really helping the players find the focus, helping simplify the complexity of the game for the players so that they don't overthink, diminish any unnecessary pressure. And I think the best way to do that is really, if you do the work ahead of time, you empower the players to lead and be autonomous. And then as a coach, you find the moments where you're needed. But the most important part is like teaching and parenting, make
Yeah.
yourself unnecessary.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up all about teaching and parenting and whatnot, because like, granted, you're taking a group of young men on this trip, which probably means a lot to them, because this is probably some of their biggest game moments ever. But
Yeah.
like for a young coach like Connor,
Mm-hmm.
who looks up to you as a mentor,
Yeah.
like how do you how do you guide him through this moment where it's like, like you mentioned it before, where every game, yes, is a single knockout game, but you can't make it all about yourself. But you have
Yeah.
to also balance how
Yeah.
the players' mentality, attitude is, but also like, you know, managing your tactics, because every game is going to be different. Game
Yeah.
one, you can go against a team in a low bucket, and the next game you make it to you play against a team that's high pressing. Yeah, how do you help him manage those moments where all those things coming at him at once?
Yeah. That's a great question. I mean, I partially probably have my coaching educator hat on, like when I'm teaching the A senior pro license, and I'm observing a coach in a training session. It's his session, right? It's Connor's game to coach, and he needs to feel that, right? So whatever interaction he and I have has to make sure that he doesn't take any more pressure from me being there. But quite the contrary, he needs to be able to trust. And again, it helps because we work really closely in the first team environment every day. We have a great relationship, but it does determine my interactions, because as much as I could start coaching during the game, any coaching that I would have during the game has to be aligned with how Connor wants to coach the game, right? So a lot of times it's me asking questions, me giving him more ideas in terms of, has he thought about this or has he thought about that? But ultimately it's the same as it is for the players, because if you're on a player all the time and you're telling them what to do, even if what you're saying is right and they are reacting to what you're doing, you're just putting a band-aid, right? You're just getting them through a moment. And as much as we do, we're going there to win, right? That's the goal. But at the same time, like, no lives are at stake. It's not that important that it would start actually, undermining or risking the process of development and the development to compete for everybody, staff included. So it's a subtle craft, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity and the trust that comes from the organization for me to do what I do. So
Yeah. And by looking at this current roster, I'm going to take away the players that have played professional minutes already, because we know
yeah,
about them. We've talked about them in this minutes, but who are some of the standout young players to watch out for in these upcoming USL Academy finals?
I mean, there's a lot of the team, to be honest. I mean, I would say Axel Aldana Gallegos, Andrew Richmond, Nico Ceballos, Nick Sarantakos, probably those four. I mean, they play in different lines in the field, have different qualities, but those would be the four off the top of my head. And all the games are going to be live, by the way. Yeah, all the games are going to be streamed live, so we don't have the link yet. The league let us know this morning though, so they said that once they have the league, they're going to share it, and obviously we want to amplify that. So.
Oh yeah, most definitely, because I will be looking forward to watching these games.
Yeah.
I'm not going through a kickers and Ivory withdrawal right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
need something to watch.
Yeah.
So talk about that young group that you have there, and if you can't share, I understand it, but I figure why not ask the question: are any of those players or anyone in the Richmond Kickers Academy, are they on the brink of making a big impact and breaking through? Like, is there a player who, I guess, let's say, like they have an outstanding tournament in these finals? Do you invite them to the spring and be like, hey, look, you had such a good tournament here. Let's invite you to the spring?
Elliot, come on, man. I listen to you guys. I'm not going to help you win your preseason predictions with Kate. Come on now. I'm not going to give you the head up.
Hey, it helped last year.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't it fun when you didn't know about Griffin and then he has a breakout year and he's a Young Player of the Year finalist for all the right reasons, right?
Yeah, it did. It did. It helped a lot.
Here's what I'm going to say to you, right? If you think about why we have the U20s, it's 100% for the reason of it gives us an elevated platform to observe the players and see, okay, if you're doing well in that environment, then the next environment that we're going to have to look you at is going to be the first team environment. So our expectation 100% has to be, as a club, we need to continue to bring in more players like Nick Simmons, Griffin Garnett, James Nedden, Beckett Howell, Landon Johnson. I mean, that is what we've said as a club that we do, and we absolutely have to walk that talk, right? So I think it would actually be unfair to start talking about names in terms of who they could be, because development is never linear and there's always all kinds of different stages in the process. But what I will tell you is Beckett and Landon, the expectation for them for next season, in terms of being on the brink of making a big impact. This season, you saw a big impact from James and Griffin, right?
Yeah.
Neither of them were probably predictable, but it speaks for the beauty of the process. And sometimes people get frustrated, impatient with it. But Beckett and Landon, for me, have the potential to have breakout years next season. And what I think is always important to keep in mind is that everyone's path is different, and struggles and challenges are really, they're not only useful for development and success, but they're actually a biological necessity, right? And when players go through different types of hiccups, nobody knows, and what they look like also nobody knows. But talking about players recently coming through the academy and on the brink of making a big impact, I think Beckett and Landon, they keep doing what they're doing. They have the potential to have breakout years next season. And there are others, names that I'm not going to start mentioning right now, because like I said, I truly believe that we have a team with the USL Academy that has a lot of really exciting potential. But right now it's still potential, right?
Yeah.
So.
I guess I'm going to frame this in a weird way, but it probably makes sense. Did you have to convince players like Griffin Garnett, James Nedden, and them who play extensive minutes with the pro teams to be like, hey, look, I need you to play for the U20s, or were they kind of just already like, no, we're going, coach?
Not
you kind of had to be like, let me
not
see.
One bit. We actually, the hardest part about that is that college players who are currently in college are not allowed to play with pros, right?
Yeah.
And that's why you don't see a Gabe Cox, who played an important part of the USL Academy team in season, right? But the hardest part about what you're talking about was actually having to say no to the likes of Noah Wright, right? And Gabe. Sorry, but they can't play. If Griffin's playing, you can't play, right? And ultimately, the role of the academy is to develop players for the first team. And I know we're going to talk about the how the tournament can help the pro guys develop, but I want to stay on this topic for a little while longer, because what you're talking about is a globally challenging situation, right? I mean, just take the experiences that I just had in Germany, right? I'm watching their U21s train on a Friday when there's guys who are there for the first time that week, who were hoping to play for the first team on Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm.
But instead they go and play for the U21s. Do you think those guys are happy?
No.
Do you think they're excited to play? Most of them often is like, man, right? But how you do the culture piece, how you do your development off the field when they're younger, how you do the guidance and the mentorship when they're younger and when they're on the brink of the first team, and who you sign, determines the type of issues you're going to have when it comes to this. And in our case, we're very fortunate, the guys that we have from the first team with the academy, they couldn't wait to get going. Like, we literally had to tell every one of them, like, Nick, you're taking a week and you're watching your sister play. Like, Beckett, Griffin, you guys, spend time with your dads and your sisters or brothers or whatever, right? We had to tell them, you're going to be in it. Don't worry. You're going to be playing with the academy. You're going to be training. We got plans for you, but you need to take a break and then we get going. They were all jumping at the bits. So,
yeah. I mean, that's good to hear that they're all super excited for it. But I mean, like you said, you already alluded to it, so let's jump into it. How does this tournament improve the guys that has played professional minutes? Because, from the outside looking in, you're thinking about it was like, all right, I can see why you bring maybe a Beckett Howe or Nick Simmons or Orlando, who didn't play extensive amount of minutes throughout the season, right? This is their chance for them to shine and say, like, hey, like, if you perform really well here, come to the spring, it makes it a lot easier to judge you there. But for a guy like Griffin Garnett, who, made my prediction absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And Jay Sneddon, who,
it.
The last part of the season, I think, was this changing piece in us getting into the playoffs. Like, how do they benefit from playing in this tournament where they might have already, developmentally might be ahead of some of the guys that they're coming up against?
So I'm going to throw that right back at you. What roles do you think we expect them to play?
I'm assuming starters.
Okay. But beyond that, like, what kind of, like, in terms of contribution, right? Leadership or no?
Oh, yes. I'm assuming
right?
that Griffin will probably be captain if I had to bet money.
So now you're talking, like, whether someone is wearing an armband or not, but that one of the most important pieces is this, and it's a challenge, especially in the American soccer culture, because most places where you don't have a first team as the place to aspire to, and there's no connection to older players appropriately, young players growing up don't really see what it looks like to have presence on the field. They don't really see, or they don't really know what it looks like when someone takes you under their wing and says, hey, this is how we do things over here. Or, hey, next time in that same moment, make sure you're running this way first and then you take off, right?
Yeah.
So Griffin, James, Beckett, Landon, Nicholas, even Brendan Dubziniak, they've had the advantage and the benefit of being in the first team environment and training and seeing how some of our more experienced players like Clyde Chella or Dakota Barnathan, James Vaughn, Zaka Moran, how they've helped them in that environment.
Yeah.
And then so they've seen how big a part of a player's role that can be on the field. And then so now the expectation for them in terms of their development is, can you lead? Really work on you being the man, because there's no one else in the team who is older than you, more experienced than you. Now you need to develop what is the identity that you can have as a soccer player that is one that is a come with me leader, that at the right moment understands that, okay, now he needs a kick in the butt and he needs a shoulder to cry on. And I need to be able to deliver both in game and off the field, right? And that's actually a huge piece of a player's development, that when there's vertical integration in a pathway can happen over time, but then in the right moments, like a a bracket of 16 teams competing for the national championship. It's just intensified. So there's many details that come with it in terms of not everyone's going to be a vocal leader. Even positionally, it shouldn't be an expectation for the winger to start telling the center back what to do, right?
Yeah.
But in the right moment, yes, right? And it may be that Landon, because he knows Griffin so well, Landon may be the only one who's going to be able to know exactly how to go and say, hey, Griffin, bounce up, you're good, or whatever is needed, right?
Yeah.
And then so for them to develop the voice and to amplify the voice they may already have is huge. And it's so complex because they're playing with players that they don't know. They're playing with players that aren't yet at the level that they're at because they're not pros, right? But they can get frustrated about it. They need to understand that there's a reason why those younger players are playing with them. They have the potential.
Yeah.
So their role in the development of the younger players also. So as you can see, I'm getting even more animated. I'm super excited about it because I was very, very fortunate to grow up in an environment where this was the norm, where this is what the clubs do. And I benefited tremendously, both as a player, but also as a young coach later on. So
I have a question about I'm gonna hold up for this because we're not getting out of this podcast without talking about there's a certain name in this list that has your last name.
yeah.
Just removing the coaching hat, removing the technical director hat. How proud of you as a father and a dad to have your son be a part of this and whatnot, and just like, are you gonna have that moment where you sit back? Because I had the chance to talk to Greg Simmons about this yesterday, about like seeing your son wear the same jersey he wore and seeing him come onto the field, and he zoomed that proudly. Are you gonna sit back and have that moment as well? Are you gonna allow yourself to have that moment? Is the better question.
Well, not right now. I mean, it's obviously awesome that Eli made the team, but like right now, I don't have the time for that. I don't think it's the right thing to do, right? In the capacity that I'm in, I'm there for every single player, and I can't detach from that. I can't detach from the role. Obviously, after the fact, obviously, when you look back on, what does it mean if someone makes a team? What does it mean if they play any minutes? Then you can obviously look back on it and be excited about it. And of course, on the personal level, I'd be foolish if I said like I'm completely able to compartmentalize different brains. Of course not, right? But looking at it from the perspective of the role that I have with the team, he's just any other player. I can't afford, the other players don't deserve for me to think anything other than he's just another player. And of course it's exciting for him, but it's also very exciting for everybody else.
And I think it's so unique that like, he's not the only one going through this, because you see it a lot of times in a lot of teams where like the coach's son is on the team and some players are looking at him kind of jaded, but like he's not the only one going through it, because like Nick Simmons, someone who they can share that experience together. I think that's really awesome.
Eli's got great role models on the team to talk to, because there's players there, like you said. Nick Simmons is a perfect example, right? So and again, like I'm grateful for the type of young guys that those young pros are, because they are welcoming. They look after the young ones. So which is all part of the process for everybody, and it's really cool to see how it happens. So, and
this will probably be our final question, but I want to ask you this. You've been working on this project for the better part of 2 years. Technical director, you have heard the voices on this podcast about the frustration about what's going on, the heights of 2021 to what happened, all around. How things have ebbed and flowed. But like, as a technical director, how proud are you of where the project is now? Obviously, there's definitely more to do and more to grow, because like you guys said, like you guys want to be able to bring players into the first team, allow them to sleep in their beds, but then be able to sell them for big profits onto major clubs and see them grow and develop even more. But right now, at this moment, kind of like in the 2 year mark of it, how proud are you of where the program is and seeing the development of these players coming through in various stages?
Yeah, I mean, incredibly proud. And again, it takes everybody. And as much as I'm proud, I also know where this can go, and that's the kind of the internal. I mean, it's not unlike the previous question when you were asking. Like, part of me wants to be like, hey, this is actually like good for us, right?
Yeah.
But I can't afford to do that because there's so much work to do, and big part of the work that we have remaining is educating people, right? And that's the part that when you come back from Europe and everybody understands, and when you talk to people over there and they hear what we're doing over here, and then on the one hand they're excited and they're like, wow, you guys are really doing a great job, and then when they hear what we're up against in terms of everything, because the surrounding culture doesn't understand it because no one else around us is doing it. MLS clubs have to do it, so they're doing it, but not even Loudoun. When you compare our programming to Loudoun, and they're in the championship, and they have obviously a very higher level budget than we do in the first team, but then so when we have to do it's hard enough, it's difficult enough to plan the programming and then implement the programming and find the coaches to actually get the job done, all of which the players deserve. But then when you add to that the piece that we also have to continuously explain why we're doing what we're doing and why this is the way, I don't have time to actually celebrate the successes, and that's it's not sad, but it's it's the reality, Elliot, right?
Yeah.
I can't afford to be like, hey, yay, good for us, awesome, now I'll get back to work, So I appreciate what you said, though, because your question implies that you guys are also very appreciative and excited about what we're doing. So
I mean,
really do appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely given the off-season news of some of the clubs surrounding us in USL League One and seeing what's happening there, in the micro, like, I'm upset about the result because you always you want to see your team win, right?
Absolutely.
We talk about here all the time. We want to have happy podcasts, but in a micro, when I look at it, like, I have a team with stable roots, and seeing that a club isn't just isn't centered around like, all right, we're just going to throw the most cash out of getting guys in, and we're actually developing, bringing in our own guys. That's what this club's been built around. It makes you proud as a fan. So
really appreciate that. And again, like, I am very grateful that I get to be at a club like that, because we're trying to be sensible and sustainable, and we're here for the long term. We're not here to, like you said, we're not here to explode and then literally be looking for something new. So
most definitely. Well, look, Coach, we wish you guys all the best down there at the tournament. Once again, it is December 4th. Game will be streamed live. We don't know where yet, but we know it will be streamed live, so we'll be able to
sharing that.
Watch and talk about that. Maybe after we host a trophy and whatnot, we'll have you back on to talk about the whole experience and everything like that. I think you guys got St. Petersburg. First game, and then you're in the same bracket with Utah Red Wolves. That's weird.
Utah Red Wolves and San Antonio FC, which will be a very interesting game to watch for scouting purposes. So,
maybe we can find another Ethan Bryant out there.
Oh, there you go.
Because Mika, any last words from you before we wrap up?
It's very befitting, given that it's one of my absolute favorite holidays of the year, Thanksgiving. So just a lot of grateful thoughts from me to you. Thank you for inviting me, and always a pleasure talking with you, Elliot.
No problem, sir. Well, as always, listeners, we just want to say thank you for taking the time of your day, for listening to our podcast. Without you, we wouldn't be able to do this. So make sure that you check us out at rivercity93.com. And we wish you guys the best of luck and happy holidays. With that being said, be easy and be safe.